Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. We're zooming in and focusing in on a very interesting and important viewer comment and question, and that was to really develop content on the impact of narcissistic parent on the family system, the legacy towards the child, and their basically how they develop later in life as the impact of narcissistic parenting. So I would like to focus in on really whether it's covert or overt narcissist parenting styles. But really, on a very broad sense, I would like to look at really the core topic of narcissistic parenting, which means basically they are at a position that is above and more important than their children. So it's not just having authority. It's not just having the parental role. It's not just them being the providers in the family, the matriarch, the patriarch. It is really the experience that they will then devalue their children to in their parenting style. So those who are especially victimized or who are scapegoated very much experience this devaluation in the family parenting process, where they're made to feel less than, they're made to feel inferior, they're made to feel shame-based, they're not able to be autonomous, they're not able to be self-reliant, they're not able to be self-dependent, they're not encouraged to pursue and explore their environment, they're not encouraged to explore. They're really reprimanded and punished oftentimes for having emotions such as crying, such as fear, such as needing to be held. They are reprimanded, scolded for trying to work things out with their siblings. They're oftentimes assigned erroneous and faulty positions in the family. For example, stating that they're provoking fights when they did nothing of the sort. Saying that they are that they're lying about something that their sibling did when they did not. So their testing of reality is faltered, and the child learns that they can't trust their reality, they can't trust themselves, and in essence, they develop a codependent tendency as a desire to keep peace, happiness, and semblance of some sort of normalcy in their environment, so that they then subjugate or repress their own needs, their own communication, their own what they call industry in their environment for the purpose of satisfying the parent and making them happy, turning around and, as they say with narcissists, becoming an extension of them. So rather than having a feeling of their own boundaries and their own life, their own identity, their own purpose, rather than being encouraged and supported for this, they're faulted for this. They are shamed for this. They are punished for this. They are ridiculed for their friends that they might have. They might be insulted for any advances that they make in school. They might be basically talked down to. And so they become this eternal child, if you will. They become this repressed child. There's a wounded child always lurking within them. And so they're aware of this, but they have to bring this and they have to basically cover up this woundedness when they enter into their school, into their workplace. And I've spoken with many of those who have been raised by narcissist parenting, and they just enter into their workforce very, as they call themselves a hot mess. They just, they might cry at their workplace frequently. They feel like they have to ask a lot of questions all the time. They can never really get it. They develop an attention deficit disorder. They feel so insecure that knowledge just can't stick. It can't register. They're constantly, trying to please this parent, and they're moving between really those trying to discover their parents' needs and happiness and doing chores around the house, or trying to talk to the parents about their interests versus having their own. So it becomes this real sort of split in focus. It becomes very difficult for them to focus and feel good about focusing. So there's this whole reward system that tends to go on. And so they're almost embracing this shadow of a person this feeling inferior of a person, this void of a person, which is them, which they're supposed to, branch out and experience in its full entirety and not be shamed for going out and exploring in their environment, making friends, testing reality, as they say, learning how to navigate their own emotions, having parents there to help guide them through that. So we see a high development or high incidence of developing of codependency, which means people-pleasing behaviors, which means, they're constantly focused on pleasing others. This might express themselves in overly sexual activity to please others. It might develop in a lot of outward-focused, egocentric behavior, such as materialism, to please others. So to try to be popular, to try to fit in, a constant, feeling that their importance is created by the friends that they have. So they might have a lot of friends, but they might not be doing very well in school. They might be very behind in their spelling, their math, because they're so keen on developing this social network, this social support system, especially now with all of the social media sites, the Facebook, etc., that they oftentimes place their self-worth, their self-valuation on the friends that they have versus who they are as a person. So they're kind of feeling like nobody really knows them, or it hasn't been able to communicate with the authentic self. So in essence, codependency has a similar reactivity to narcissism, where they're living by a mask or a shell, and rather than it being all about them, it's very much not all about them. So they tend to become very selfless. Their identity is about pleasing other people. So their identity is caught up in pleasing other people, which is, people come and go. Their needs can change. And so it's like a constantly moving target versus having empowerment within. So this codependency state is something that is a learned state. It's a way that they have learned to get by in life. And for some people are very content living this way. For other people, it's a very taxing existence, a very exhausting existence. And they become feeling very isolated in groups where they're constantly trying to fill the void of others or fill the needs of others. So it's about learning to shed that old habitual way of pleasing others and realizing that they are number one. It is really important for them to become almost codependent to themselves, where they work to satisfy, please, and exonerate and support and promote themselves. Not from an egotistical standpoint, but from a value standpoint, knowing really intrinsically that they are of worth and that they are important, and experiencing that, and then therefore being around other people who can give them and validate that same experience. It's very important because that was not provided to them in the family. So it creates really sort of this catechism of new needs that are, to be obtained, and tools later in life. So they can eventually nurture a very wonderful part of them, which is, they're giving it to themselves. They're in essence being able to mentor themselves. They are the mentor that they are looking for. And then really learning to embrace true mentors, which they can look up to and model themselves after, because these people really emanate the gifts which they have inside, which they eventually will begin to see and reflect as they stay on the path of healing longer and longer. So, really then the light and life begins to be drawn to them and supportive of them as they become opened up to this. And then they begin to really kind of relaunch their life, reboot their life, reset their life path as they come and emerge out of this narcissistic, where they were hitherto living as an extension of others. When I say that, I mean that they're living to please others. In other words, they're not... The narcissist parent sees the child as an extension of themselves rather than as their own person. So they tend to take credit for all of their accomplishments. Feels shamed when that child doesn't advance in a particular area. Rather than being helpful and supportive, they tend to shame them and really exploit their kids' emotional side, and really begin emotional abuse. from narcissistic parents who really look at their children as an extension of themselves and hold them to very high, unrealistic standards, which aren't. It's very interesting because narcissistic parents oftentimes expect really perfectionist goals to be attained by their children, yet they haven't provided the actual means, support for them to actually accomplish it. So they're really setting their kids up for a failure when you see these narcissistic systems of perfectionists, that they're never good enough and they get criticized, blamed, and the scapegoating narcissist parenting model where it's as if, you beat somebody up and expect them to be better after being beaten again and again and again. So it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy where the parents are creating a wounded, it's like, look at you, you're so wounded, and, they're beating them up. Well, it's because you beat them up. That's why they're wounded. There's nothing wrong with them. They're wounded because you beat them up. They're hurt because you hurt them. They're experiencing a sense of being flawed because you basically communicated to them that they were a sense of flaw, which is all erroneous. It's at the communication and mercy of a narcissist parent. So once they really emerge and get to something more broader in their life outside of that family system, they realize that life is there waiting for them and really all their unique gifts that they have to give. And chances are they'll find themselves in a much better position in other systems once they can shed some of that codependence and embrace their own personal empowerment. So I hope these videos do help and shed some light to the impact of narcissist parenting on their child as a general topic. It's peace and harmony with you here today, and hoping that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.